Hello, and welcome back to Vida Vibes podcast. I'm your host, Lisbet, and I'm very excited about this specific episode because it is going to be about women's health. So if you're a girl, stay along for the ride. If you're not a girl and you're not interested in this episode, you don't have to stick around, which is the great abilities of today's day and age is you don't have to listen. But this is not a scripted episode. I was not planning or did have any intentions or was it in my pipeline of ideas of episodes to talk about, but it is an episode that I feel very passionate about, especially in the last couple of days, specifically today, because I was talking to my therapist. Shout out V. And we were talking about just women's health and so many different things that women go through and how little women's bodies are studied compared to males. And the reason this came along is because I suffer from UTIs and I've suffered from UTIs for a long time. I haven't suffered from like chronic UTIs, meaning back-to-back UTIs in a very long time. But recently I had back-to-back. So about 2 months ago I had a UTI, now I have another UTI. And it's very frustrating because there's no clear direction in terms of what could be going on. And there isn't one specific answer. And then when you call your gynecologist's office in the United States of America to make an appointment, you're scheduled for 2 weeks away, which by that point you A, have to treat your UTI already, which I'm already doing with antibiotics to go into the urgent care, and B, it's going to be gone by the time you go there because you have to treat it with antibiotics. Otherwise it could affect your kidneys and you could die. And I'm very frustrated because you also get contradicting responses in terms of the medical field for what is normal for a woman's body and what's not normal. So some people say, yes, it's normal to have period pains. Other people say, no, it's not normal. Some people say this is what a normal discharge is. And some people say this is not what a normal discharge is. Some people say this is what your woman's lady parts should look like, and other people say no, that's not what it should look like. And it's very frustrating because it's not a one size fits all. And the reason that it's also very frustrating and there's lack of information is because it has not been studied. So I did a quick Google search and I want to share some of the Google searches that I found with you guys, if my phone allows me to do that. It stops acting up. Okay, so women are underrepresented in research, which can limit the understanding of how women experience and are treated for disease. Here are some stats that highlight the underrepresentation of women in research. Are you guys ready? So exciting. Brain imaging research. Only about half of 1% of brain imaging research is done in women. Cancer clinical trials. A 2015 study found that women and racial/ethnic minorities, which I'm part of that too, are severely underrepresented in cancer clinical trials. Pharmacology. A 2019 study found that the representation of females in pharmacology research has decreased from 33% to 29%. Other factors that contribute to the underrepresentation of women in research include historical bias, policies that protect unborn children from exposure to drugs and treatments, challenges to recruiting and retaining women in clinical trials and medical research, the FDA policy to exclude women of reproductive potential from phase 1 and 2 clinical trials unless they have a life-threatening condition. According to a report from the World Economic Forum and the McKinsey Health Institute, women spend 25% of their lives in debilitating health than men. The report also notes that women are undiagnosed for certain conditions compared to men. And now let's go into that a little bit further, shall we? This is the World Economic Forum website. And this article was originally published in October of 2023 and last updated in May of 2024. So fairly recently, this month, when I'm recording this episode. Women spend... here we go. The women's health gap includes a percented data gap, with women being underdiagnosed for certain conditions compared to men. Here's what we need to know about the women's health gap and 5 conditions to highlight it. So in 2019, a study of almost 7 million people in Denmark found that women were diagnosed with hundreds of health conditions when they were on average 4 years older than men, meaning we are diagnosed 4 years later. Diagnoses for diabetes came 4.5 years later, while cancer was diagnosed in women when they were an average 2.5 years older than men. The researchers surmised that a combination of genetics and environment could be at play, but that gender bias might also be partly responsible for the difference. Isn't that freaking lovely? So here we go. Another stat for you guys. The women's health gap equates to 75 million years of life lost due to poor health or early death each year. Closing the gap would give the 3.9 billion women in the world today an extra 7 healthy days a year, or an average of 500 days over a lifetime. Not only that, but it could also boost the global economy by $1 trillion by 2040. From fewer early death and health conditions and a greater capacity of women to contribute to the economy and society, finds closing the women's health gap a $1 trillion opportunity to improve lives and economies. Now, let's back up. I just love that women health, let's study them more so we can get more money out of them. Okay, let's just keep that in mind. Isn't that lovely? In 2020, only 1% of healthcare research and innovation was invested in female-specific conditions beyond oncology, according to McKinsey. 1% of health research and innovation in 2020. This was 4 years ago. For every $1 invested in women's health, the report from the Forum and the McKinsey Global Health Institute projects there would be around 3 in economic growth. Again, well, don't we love that women's health, which should be a fair right because it is for males, is broken down to dollar signs. Okay, that is just, I just love that. So now here's growing evidence of the gender health gap. Heart attack, in case you didn't know this. Women in the UK are around third less likely to receive a coronary angiogram, which allows doctors to see narrowing and blockages in blood vessels, in case you didn't know, over a STEMI heart attack, mainly caused by heart disease. So previous research has found women were 50% more likely than men to be given an incorrect diagnosis following a heart attack. Endometriosis, which in case you don't know, it's an excruciating, debilitating chronic illness that is understudied and misunderstood by many doctors. Okay, let's just go. Endometriosis is referred to as the missed disease because so little is still known about it and it's underdiagnosed. Globally, it affects 10% of women and girls of reproductive age, but in the US, for example, only 2 out of 10 cases are diagnosed, meaning 8 women live in excruciating pain, with diagnoses taking more than 7 years and even longer for Black women. It's not lovely. Autism. Around 3 times as many boys are diagnosed with autism as girls, and girls are often diagnosed later than boys or not diagnosed at all, which can lead to mental health problems in adulthood, according to research. ADHD. Another neurobiological condition that frequently co-occurs with autism and is similarly mis- or underdiagnosed in females is ADHD. In the US, less than 1% of women have a diagnosis of ADHD, but the number is growing rapidly according to research. Wonder why? Because we get into adulthood and then we self-diagnose ourselves. Autoimmune conditions. Women account for the majority of people, 80% with autoimmune disease, but it takes an average of 5 years for them to get a diagnosis, according to the American Autoimmune Association. I can go about this for days. Like, there's so much more research in terms of there's more money invested into Viagra and men's health and so much other freaking BS for men. And then women are misdiagnosed, underrepresented in the medical field, which is extremely hurtful for women. It is so sad. And it's not, the thing is that since we're underdiagnosed and underrepresented in these diagnoses and researches, there's so much that we don't understand about the female body. So that means that even your doctors, who are supposed to be your truth of source, also are not aware and do not understand a lot of the things that you're going through, because they aren't taught this in school, because there isn't any research to teach this. So the medical field in general is just letting women down. Are we surprised? I don't know. I mean, women, for the first time that could open a bank loan for themselves without a man having to sign for them was in 1988. Which wasn't that long ago, okay? So the fact that we're underrepresented and misdiagnosed more than men is not really shocking. It's just upsetting. It's upsetting that a man not being able to get diggy with it is more important than a female going through excruciating pain or not being able to have a baby. And it's also really sad that the healthcare in the United States, at least, because I'm not really sure how it works in Europe, it was just in the last couple of years that it acknowledged that IVF should be something that the healthcare system should, help for, and it doesn't pay for it fully. And freezing your eggs is also something else that's extremely expensive, but it's not seen. It's seen as like a luxury, like, oh, you want to get a facial type of thing. The reason that I'm so upset about this is because one of the things that I try and understand my body, and I've tried in the last couple of years, but it's extremely difficult because there is no true source to what you could be going with, because again, there just might not be enough research done in that specific area to give you a proper diagnosis. So for example, I've been told by doctors, UTIs are genetic. My mom suffered it when she was younger, so that's more of a likelihood that I will suffer from it. And then another doctor tells me that's not true. Okay, so let's talk about birth control. From the moment that you start to be sexually active, the first thing that people throw at you is birth control pills. Or even when you come to your gynecologist and tell her, hey, I'm having really excruciating periods. Oh, just get on birth control. Well, why don't you try and solve my issue? Like, maybe there's an underlying cause that's happening here, which most of the time that's what's going on. Why don't you try and figure out what's going on and work with me here so I get a proper diagnosis, and not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And then later on, 10 years from now, when I want to have a kid, I then have to go through all of these hurdles. And now I can't have a kid for 5 or 8, 10 years because I didn't do the proper work because you just put a Band-Aid on it. Because that's the easiest solution. And also, there's certain doctors and doctors' offices that get a percentage cut from selling certain medications over to their patients and having X amount of patients be on these medications. UTI, birth control, what's that called? The not the pill. It's like the inserting one. I forgot right now what it was called. It's one that you insert instead of like the pill that you take. And then birth control is misdiagnosed, and it's so easily given to women, but they don't explain, hey, this can cause heart attacks. It can cause, blood clots. It can cause problems down the line for you to give birth, because you're basically putting something into your body that doesn't allow your reproductive system to function the way that it's supposed to function. So obviously a couple years from now, your body's not going to understand what it's supposed to do because it hasn't been doing what it's got to do for a long time. And you can also gain weight. It also causes problems with your mental health. None of that is explained to you. None of it. No one ever says it's just a Band-Aid solution to your problem. You don't want to get pregnant? Birth control. You don't want to have period cramps? Birth control. You don't want to have heavy flows? Birth control. Because it can't be any other issue. Like, it can't be that, oh, maybe I have endometriosis, or maybe I have ulcers, or I have something else. Like, it has to be a Band-Aid issue. And the reason that I'm having such a really annoying problem with this is because even books that are put out there by certain gynecologists in the industry, doctors that you're supposed to trust when you're trying to find research to understand women's body better, even those books are selling products. It's like, hey, we can help you. Just buy my multivitamin and everything will get better. What the hell? What? So right now I got this book, which is recommended by an amazing gynecologist here I found her on TikTok, and I just really like what she does. And the book is called, I'm going to tell you guys, The Vagina Bible. And let me see if I can find. So it's called The Vagina Bible, The Vulva and the Vagina, Separating the Myth from the Medicine. And this is by Dr. Jen Gunter. I just got this book. I just started it. But here is the first, this is literally in the first 2 pages of the book, right? And I just started, so I'll follow up with you guys on this. But I literally highlighted this whole page almost. So it says, obsessions with reproductive tract purity and cleansing date back to a time when a woman's worth was measured by her virginity and how many children she could bear. A vagina and uterus were currency. And that has not changed. We're in the year 2024, and women being represented, or like women fighting to get a diagnosis, has to be brought down to currency. Hey, if we like actually put more research into women, they'll live longer, so they'll spend more money. Let's continue. Playing on these fears awakens something physical. It's no wonder the words pure, natural, and clean are used so often to market products to women. Because God forbid women actually have an odor that is normal, because it's your body doing what it's got to do to cleanse and to clean and to do what it's got to do to be healthy. God forbid that happens, because women have to stay pure and clean and beautiful and precious, and they have nothing can bodily fluids can go wrong or can be occurring. Next paragraph from this specific page is members of the media and celebrity influencers. We can think of a few. Tap into these fears with articles about and products to prevent vagina mayhem, as if the vagina, which evolved to stretch and tear to deliver a baby long before Sutter medical was invented, is somehow so fragile that it is constantly in a state of near catastrophe, which is so true. Fear is the number one thing that's put into us women for our bodies. It's like the lack of education from understanding how your body is supposed to produce and the things that happen. Like discharge is normal, and then it goes through fluctuations, and there's a reason why. And your basal body temperature also changes and fluctuates. And that is also totally fine and totally part of your life. And it's going to be okay. Like it's not, you shouldn't be not having these normal bodily fluids. Sorry if you heard humans outside. And it's very frustrating as someone that, struggles with maybe different chronic illnesses and is trying to understand how her body works and is trying to make the right choices and is trying to educate herself, to then find out that even books written by doctors shouldn't be trusted, because they're just ultimately, not all of them, but most of them are trying to sell you a product to try and make some money out of you, because ultimately women equal currency. And the thing is, the amount of times I have been gaslit by gynecologists and doctors is really upsetting, and it's really heartbreaking. And I guess this is a vent episode for women who are dealing with issues, and you have been doing it for years, and you have to run around to what you feel is 1,000 doctors. I'm sorry. I feel you. I see you. It is so frustrating, the amount of money that we have to spend on trying to find basic information, the amount of years that you go through being in pain and through being told that something is normal to then find out it's not normal. Or having to work on diagnosing yourself and telling doctors what you have, and then arguing with your doctors because they're like, that there's no way you have that. And then when it turns out you do have it, they're like, oh, I guess you did. I guess you did. I guess you were right. It is so frustrating how against us the world is. And it's true, we are still seen as just bearing the children and keeping the lifeline along, making sure the world doesn't end by birthing. And don't get me wrong, I look forward to the day I get to be a mom and have a family and give children. That's one of my just accomplishments or dreams that I want to do. That's not every woman's dreams, and it shouldn't freaking be. And it's totally fine, and it's okay. And it's healthy if you don't want to have kids. Okay, I get it, listen. I don't blame you. But the fact that we are still brought down to this currency, to this number, and we're just seen as how can we make more money from women, and the fact that the researchers would much rather put money towards trying to fix a problem that isn't there instead of actually trying to understand what is going on. Like, there's so many pills that you can take for your vagina to smell better, for less discharge, for less odor, for this and that and whatever, and I don't even know what else, instead of the underlying issue that needs to be treated, that is actually going to help you and potentially save your life in some situations. So this was my rant. But I don't necessarily, I wish there was like a happy ending to this part of the podcast. And maybe it's the fact that if more women start to spread the education that they're doing themselves to other communities, it might help us all understand ourselves a little bit better or feel less alone. There's so many times that when you are diagnosed with something or you're told something or you feel a symptom, you go to the internet like we all do in this day and age, and there's no clear community or answer. So you feel like you're alone and you feel like you're going to die and you feel like there is no answer. And the only answer is for you to go to your doctors, but even your doctors aren't really going to understand what's going on. Like, I went to my gynecologist 2 weeks ago for the issue that I've been dealing with, and she just said, well, if you have it again, give us a call. Well, I did give you a call, and then your office scheduled me for 2 weeks after. And first of all, I actually had to almost plead for that appointment because they said, well, you have an appointment for your pap smear August 27th. And I'm like, I understand that, but I'm telling you that I'm currently going through a UTI again. What are you not grasping from this? Because again, it's like currency. It's like in and out. Like, if you're not making us money, you're just going to fill up her calendar in a time slot that could be taken by someone else that actually, is going to make us more money. And it's very frustrating and very aggravating. And honestly, I think I'm going to call and change my gynecologist, because this is the same gynecologist that looked at me and said, period pains are normal. Yeah, it's great that you feel period pains. Actually, it means your body's doing what it's got to do. And yes, some cramping is normal because you're releasing an egg, and that is normal. But I have had horrible cramps where I need to put heating pads and take lots of medications for the first 1 to 3 days, depending on my cycle, depending on the month. I don't think that's necessarily normal. And I would like for you to listen to me instead of telling me what I should be thinking of the issues that I'm telling you. And I've also had a great gynecologist who was very kind. But that I had to move states. It's just very difficult. And then there's a lot of, underdiagnoses or misdiagnosed, or just not as much research done in women's fields for health, for even STDs and what that looks like and what your body goes through and how that affects you and the precautions of that from 5-10 years from now. And it's really disheartening that, once again, we are forgotten and we're not important. And especially with everything that has happened in the last couple of years with Roe v. Wade and just all of the conversations of limiting women's body and controlling us, it's so disheartening. And it's disheartening to realize that this isn't really new. It's not a surprise, and it shouldn't be a surprise for all of us. It's just sad. So I guess to end this on a lighter note, my advice to you would be the same one that I'm giving myself, and that's to educate myself and find books and resources that are legit, that aren't just trying to sell me a product, and trying to understand my body better, and then spreading the awareness that I have to potentially help other women and girls not feel less alone as I feel. And that it's okay to be curious and to ask questions and to challenge your doctors. And it's okay to break up or change doctors if you don't feel comfortable in the one that you are currently going to. It's actually should be healthy for you to do that until you find your perfect match and the one that you feel confident with and comfortable enough to share and ask questions. Because let's be honest, like there's questions that a lot of us have that we're ashamed to ask because society has made us ashamed of our bodies as women. And then if you don't have a safe space to talk with that with anyone, you're not going to ask questions that could again help you from not being in pain anymore. So continue to do your own research. I'll continue to share what I discover as well on my own from this book. I really am excited because I already like her writing and the way that she describes a lot of things. And I want to understand my body better. And also as someone who struggles with health anxiety, this helps me. Being able to understand what my body is going through and what's currently happening, what's normal, what's maybe not normal, helps me to understand and be able to have less anxiety over the things that are happening. But like she mentioned in the book, there's a lot of fear that is put into women that shouldn't be put. And there's a lot of research that is old and outdated and doesn't apply anymore that is still roaming around and the doctors are still advising women about. So welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It's just frustrating and disheartening and sad. But I hope that if anything for this Vida Vibes podcast episode, it helps you feel a little bit less alone in what you're currently going with and what you're dealing with, because it's hard. It's hard. Being a girl, being a woman is hard in this day and age. But that it could be something that I could hopefully help with in terms of cultivating and building a community that we all help each other. So if there's any other research, any other books that you guys have enjoyed to talk about or read or educate yourself on, share it with your community, share it with your friends. And if you feel confident enough, talk with your mom, with your sister, with your friends, relatives, people that, have women bodies and, our organs and reproductive systems, and continue to share and pass information, because your answer or you saying something might be someone's answer to their question that they're too ashamed to ask. So that was it for today's episode. It was honestly just a rant because I was very frustrated and I still am. And I'm just sad. But I am happy and excited that I'm talking about this because it's a step forward for a lot of us. And I follow so many amazing women, which I want to leave below. Mika, I can't remember her name, her full Instagram handle, but she talks a lot of her endometriosis journey, mental health journey. And I admire that so much. And that's why I decided to create a specific episode for women's health, because I do want to talk more about it. So there's more women's health episodes to come. And if there's anything in particular that you want me to chat about or you want me to talk about or you're curious about, we can keep it anonymous. So let me know if that's something that interests you, and I'll create like a Google form or something like that, so that we can all have this safe space where we talk about what we're dealing with or what we want to chat about. Or things that you're curious about and are too ashamed to maybe ask your mom or your sister, or you just don't have anyone to really ask. So this was fun. This was healthy. And I am so grateful for you guys listening and to me rant about this. I will see you on the next Vida Vibes episode. I have no idea what it's going to be about because this is a spontaneous one as well. So welcome along for the ride of Vida Vibes podcast. It really is spot on, exactly how I am mentally. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of the week, and I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about this episode. If you liked it, if you enjoyed it, let me know. Let me know if you want to hear more things. Let me know how you feel about it, or if some of this stuff was shocking to you. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one. Bye.